Karoline Leavitt, his press secretary, the woman who keeps insisting Trump didn't draw this or sign this in 2003. She was 5 years old. She was too young even for Jeffrey Epstein in 2000. But they know they're all I know that these people are so certain he didn't. Donald Trump has always treated late-night jokes like a personal attack. When comedians laugh at him, he doesn't shrug. He counters publicly with insults meant to reclaim the spotlight. That reflex collided this week with a segment on Jimmy Kimmel Live that focused not on Trump directly, but on his press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, live in prime time for everyone. Before this goes any further, one quick question for you watching right now. Which country are you watching this video from? The clip began the way Kimmel's sharper monologues often do. Calm voice, a stack of notes, and a promise to keep it simple. He introduced Leavitt as the administration's message carrier and reminded the audience that the job of a press secretary is to answer questions, not replace them with slogans. Then he played a short montage of recent briefings and headlines, pausing after each line the way a teacher pauses after a wrong answer, letting the room notice the gap on its own. In coverage and commentary about the segment, Kimmel's joke was that Leavitt might be worse than Sean Spicer, not because of volume. With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported. And I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kay? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke. But because of how aggressively she defended obvious contradiction that set the tone. Not a personal roast, but a critique of a style of communication that treats verification as hostility. Kimmel's expose was not a secret document or a leaked tape. It was a pattern. He listed 3 things he said viewers could check without trusting him. What was said, what was later claimed, and what the public record showed. He described it as a simple test for any official statement. If it can't survive a replay, it isn't information, it's marketing. The studio laughed, but the laughter kept turning into applause. Because the point was easier than outrage. Kimmel wasn't asking the audience to hate anyone. He was asking them to stop rewarding fog. He made one quiet observation that became the centerpiece of the clip. When an administration calls every question fake, it's really admitting it doesn't want to answer any. That line traveled fast online, and as it traveled, so did the predictable counter-narratives. For months, fabricated stories have circulated claiming Kimmel kicked Leavitt off his show after a confrontation. Stories that fact-checkers have debunked. So, when Trump supporters tried to frame this new moment as another stage showdown, many viewers recognize the play, inflate the drama, then argue about the drama instead of the substance. Trump's response followed the older rhythm. Anyway, he posted angrily, labeling Kimmel a propaganda clown and calling Leavitt brilliant while insisting the segment proved the media feared him. The posts were less a rebuttal than a flood. The goals seemed simple. Drown a calm critique with heat, but the heat didn't land the way it usually does because Kimmel didn't fight it. The next night, he returned with an even calmer tone and addressed Trump's insults in one sentence. If the segment was meaningless, why spend the day screaming about it? Then he moved on as if the outrage wasn't worth airtime. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt, his press secretary, the woman who keeps insisting Trump didn't draw this. Leavitt stayed in her lane. At the podium, she called the monologue Hollywood misinformation, urged viewers to ignore comedians, and tried to pivot back to policy announcement. The problem was that the clip had already reframed the issue. It wasn't about comedy versus politics. It was about whether a public servant can treat obvious questions like personal attacks. Even critics noted that Leavitt is capable of restraint when the stakes demand it. After a high-profile Minneapolis shooting, she called the death a tragedy and urged investigators to proceed, avoiding rhetoric from other Trump advisors. On camera and on record, commentators highlighted how unusual the moment felt precisely because it lacked fireworks. The snap wasn't a thrown object or a live meltdown. It was the visible impatience of a brand that depends on controlling the frame. Confronted by a frame it couldn't command. By the end of the week, the viral takeaway was not that Kimmel had destroyed a person. It was that he had exposed a tactic. Repeat, deflect, accuse, and hope the audience gets tired. A tired audience stops checking. A checking audience becomes dangerous. That's why the clip spread. It offered an alternative to outrage, a checklist, a replay button, and a reminder that calm questions can be louder than screaming. And for a politician who measures power and attention, nothing is more destabilizing than attention that refuses to be steered. Turn on notifications if you believe truth deserves repetition.